Hello, I'm Dick Zare, and this is sort of a building to a climax in terms of our inquiry prize. It's interesting when you go to school, all the time people are asking you questions. You work hard to become good at solving problems, but later on, what really turns out to be so valuable is the power of the question, is actually making up a question, because a question can really turn a whole field in a new direction. And this is interesting because Molecular Frontiers Foundation is interested in awarding outstanding questions. And I want to introduce you one of the co-founders of this Inquiry Prize. This is Dr. Andreas Mershin from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, call that MIT. And Andreas, we look forward to hearing who are the winners and what have they asked.
Okay. Well, welcome to the announcement of the prizes, and I'm going to take a couple of minutes to tell you a little bit about what the prize is and why we care about questions and why we decided to be the first people to reward questions rather than answers. We were in fact the first to recognize that by rewarding inquisitiveness, we are showing the world that this is truly not only the beginning of all science is curiosity, but it's also vital for the populace to have an inquisitive mind and to be able to ask good questions, because not all questions are created equal. Since we launched this competition, modeled on the Nobel Prize and the Olympic Games, it has been copied, or it has inspired similar things by the Lindau Nobel Foundation, by Google, and by Nature. So we are very pleased that we have generated this idea, and then people are copying us. So, by the way, everybody should know that everything is televised and it's webcast on the internet. This is the address where you can go and see all of this today and tomorrow, and also ask questions of the panels that we're going to have tomorrow directly. So we're the first prize given for inquisitiveness, and the other reason why we wanted to do this for questions rather than answers is because the limited resource that one needs to compete here is not limited. Everybody has curiosity, especially children. And it's not limited by your access to socioeconomic factors. Therefore, we felt that this was a very democratizing and a very democratic way to reward something and pull people into the conversation about science globally. It's also very diverse, and because of its democratic aspect, we can be very diverse, and the only restriction that we place is that the participants are under 18 years old at the time of submission of their entries. We found out, after having done this for about 5 years, that we're also pulling in people who are generally allergic to science. Most people here in the audience like science, and that's why you're here, but there's a vast number of people who, although they're very clever and they're very inquisitive, they have an allergy to mathematics, they have an allergy to equations, to diagrams. They open up a chemistry book and it looks scary to them because they've never been exposed to it, and because it is sometimes scary. It looks very complex. However, if you tell them that what the scientist really does, a scientist is really a professional question asker. That's what we do for a living. As Francis Arnold, I loved how many times you said, "I'm asking my molecules questions." That is what science is all about. So when we communicate this message, suddenly chemistry and mathematics and physics becomes less threatening. Our mission statement of the foundation and also of the prize is to provide inquisitive minds with the credible resources and empower the innovators of the future. And if that looks like it was written by committee, it's because it was. With all the buzzwords. But it does fit into the general, it fits very well. In fact, it's probably the most well-known part of what the foundation does, apart from these forums that are very nice. And it integrates well with the rest of the activities that are at the Molecules website. And this is a nice slide by Elizabeth Ball, who's here in the audience, and also is the one who designed the medal that we give out, which I'm going to pass around, and please do give it back. This is the... And could you?
He's very trusting.
Well, our motto is creativity, curiosity, knowledge, and honesty. So I expect you to be honest, okay? Now, the rules for the prize are very simple. Anybody under 18 can enter. You can have up to 5 entries per year. You can only win once per lifetime. And we give equal numbers of prizes to boys and girls, and that has worked wonders to encourage girls. When we started this, we had 2-to-1, sometimes 3-to-1 boys to girls. Now we've reached a 50-50 in the participation. And the prize each year is judged by a panel of eminent scientists, often containing Nobel laureates, taken from our scientific advisory board. And I want to thank the judges, who some of them are present here, for spending all this time and effort yesterday to select the 5 boys and 5 girls winners for this year. And the prize structure reflects a scientific process. By entering this, the participants are actually actively being scientists. First, they ask a question. Then they tell us why they think it's important. Then they tell us where they've looked for the answer. Now we're guiding them to go look for the answer, obviously. Then they tell us why they didn't like the answers they found. And then they have to tell us a suggestion of how they would improve upon the answers. And later, for the older kids, and optionally, we ask them to tell us what will the answer or the quest for the answer do to them and the world at large. And this reflects a scientific process. If I were to give a PhD project to one of my students, this is exactly how it would go. We'd have to ask a question, find out what other people think about it, why we didn't like the answers, and what we're going to do about it. And also we have to reflect what our research is going to do to the world if we're going to undertake it. The prize has been growing steadily over the 5 years. We have reached a peak of 162 countries 2 years ago, and now we start fluctuating. For reasons that we cannot entirely explain, sometimes we have entries from countries and sometimes we have 0. For instance, this year we didn't have much from South America at all, and we're trying to find out what's going on. Also, we follow up on the questions that win and sometimes the ones that don't win because they generate real research at the universities and other places. A famous question that became the starting point for actual research was, why aren't plants black? And that generated a huge amount of research and controversy. And at first, the panel of Nobel winners and other eminent scientists who were going to answer this went like, well, there was this moment of suddenly going, yeah, maybe that's a good question. So questions like this win. Not always do we have the answers. In fact, most of the time, the questions that win do not have good answers. And what is it that the winners get? That's important. So they get the medal that is getting passed around, and it has the, yeah, that's not bright enough. It has a carbon nanotube with a buckyball on one side as an exclamation point instead of a question mark. And on the other side, it has a very strange molecule, which is also on the certificate. And does anybody know what that molecule is? It's possibly the most famous molecule of all time after water, but seen from a strange angle that you don't normally see. I'll tell you in a minute. So they also, who said it? Somebody said it? No? Okay. So the winners also get a calligraphed certificate with a name, which is modeled loosely after the actual Nobel certificate, and it's done by our artist in residence, Liz Ball, who is back there. You can see her. And they also get the iPad, and that's the real... Now we're talking, right. So what we've done this year is we've started the cloning process of this prize to adjust it to local idiosyncrasies, most importantly language. So we started a process of creating a branch of this prize in Singapore and in Greece. And the way that we're going to go about cloning it is similar to how TED and TEDx have been cloned and how MIT and MITx has happened. So we're going to keep the tenets the same, and we're going to keep the philosophy the same. And there's some do's and don'ts about this. And we'll never break the rules of rewarding curiosity, creativity, honesty, and knowledge. It will never be compulsory or schoolwork-based. It should never be country-based. It always has to be driven by the individual. But we will allow, of course, teachers and professors and others to motivate participants. But it's always an individual effort, not a team effort, not a country effort. And we're hoping to keep expanding into various countries. And the most important thing is that this prize here in Stockholm is our flagship. This will never change. So if somebody wins in another country in the local prize, that acts neither as a filter nor as a promoter to our prize. So you're totally free to enter multiple times. And if you win twice in your country and this country and another country, well, all the, power to you. That would be great. It would be very unlikely, but it would be great. The people behind the prize are listed here. Of course, Bengt Norden, he's the father, mother, grandfather, and grandmother of this whole entire thing. So without him, we wouldn't have anything. And this year, I want to give particular thanks to, of course, Liz, who always helps a lot, but also Per and Martin. Would you please stand up for helping with all the prejudging, and also Helena Ledmir, who is not here. And the rest of the people are, of course, listed here also. And another thanks to the eminent scientist judges, who some of them are here now. Now, finally, we have to thank our sponsors. This is not free. While it is run entirely by volunteers, we still need to buy the iPads, and we still need to engrave the medals and send them to all corners of the world. And we still need to upkeep the websites and do the hosting properly. So we are very lucky to have Keiji Nagano. Would he please stand up? Who is the CEO of 3DM. And they have been the prime sponsor for this year. And the other company that is sponsoring it is Quantum Recognition. They're not here to receive their applause, so I'll give it to them in person later. Now, for the winners. We start with the girls this year. We fluctuate. Every year we start differently, so this time it happens to be the girls. So the first winner comes from Lithuania, and she asks, why is the color blue so scarce in the natural ecosystems, and what accounts for that? The second winner is Nancy Lee from the United States, and she's only 13, and she asks, why do short naps leave you feeling more refreshed than longer naps? From Malaysia, and this is the first time we have a winner from Malaysia, we have Sin Ain Yap, who asks, why are there more right-handed people than left-handed people in the world? From South Korea, we have Lee Kyum-young, who asks, even though we can forget something, sometimes it pops back into our head. Is there a way to have no probability to recall a certain memory? Can we erase it for good? And finally, from India, a 13-year-old girl, Priya Nathan, asks, why should the properties of a compound vary from those of its constituent elements, as if she just listened to Paul Alivisatis' lecture? So there's some pre-science there, I think. And for the boys, for this year, we have from South Korea again, from Jeonhyun Nam, why are our teeth made of calcium compounds which are weaker than metal or diamonds? Which I think fits very well with all the patterning and templating that we've been talking about, and maybe we could template the diamonds or metals, and there might be a reason why we haven't. From Sweden, we have Gabriel Tunsader, which is by any chance in the room? No? No. When I'm hurt or ill, only I can feel the pain. Is it possible to make the doctor feel the same and make the correct diagnosis based on this? From India, we have Kausbach Argawal, who says, since it is a universal law that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, how did the energy in the universe come into existence? From Sweden again, we have Thomas Liv, who says, if everything happens because of molecular interactions, do we have free will? Wonder that for a minute, or a lifetime. And finally, from Greece, we have George Agavanakis, 16 years old, who says, how can we define the human soul? These are the winners for this year's Molecular Frontiers Inquiry Prize. Let's give them a round of applause.